Jesus, his only Son, and all praise to the Spirit who makes us one, and they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. My Father's world, into my listening ears, all nature sings around us, music of the spheres. This is my Father's world, resting me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas. This is my Father's world, the birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declares their Maker's praise.
Wrong chords on that one.
Some glad morning, when this life is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. When the shadows of this life have gone, I'll fly away. Like a bird from prison bars have flown, I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll joy shall never end. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away.
All right. I'm dancing. Bishop, do you want me to continue or stop? One more? Okay. Sure. Yep. I've got it in me.
I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discourses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet. The birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me be falling, but he bids me go through the voice of woe, his voice to me we share as we tarry there. None other has ever known. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
I don't hear it, I'm talking. Okay, if everybody would begin to, those in the room and already settled, if you'd start to quiet down, and the people who are registering, they will come in and they can hear us as they, whoa, there we go. They can hear us as they come in. Well, good morning. Welcome. It's great to see you all here, and we are blessed both as we gather and in our worship, just a few minutes to maybe take that microphone down just a teeny bit, Mark. Just a teeny bit. It's a little clean. To have Gretchen Klein with us today to give us some music and create this atmosphere. We're going to sing a couple hymns together, so she's going to help us do that. And I'm thankful right off the bat for our staff, for Rachel, for Sally, for Kristen, that created this environment for you all, the decorations, the balloons, and everything to try to, make Fall Mission Day have a little bit more excitement together. And thank them. Well, I guess if we're in thanking mode, then we'll thank our staff too, Jenny, Patty, Mark, Jonathan, who also put together programming for today, and that'll all unspool in just a second. Thank you. So we're going to worship in just a minute, but I'm going to say a couple things as people still continue to try to get in the door. And can you all hear me out there okay? Sort of? All right. I'll speak up. Well, here we are standing or sitting between All Saints Day, which was Wednesday, and All Saints Sunday, which we will celebrate this Sunday in most of our parishes. I was with college students at Virginia Tech, their Canterbury Fellowship on All Saints Day, had students from Virginia Tech and from Radford, and we even had a confirmation. And All Saints Day reminds us to give thanks for being knit together, as it says in the collect, in one communion and fellowship as the body of Christ. And then in that Eucharistic preface that we say on All Saints Day and All Saints Sunday, we acknowledge being surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. It's one of my favorite things that we say about our discipleship, this great cloud of witnesses, saints, past, present, and future. We rejoice in this cloud, this fellowship, as we are encouraged to run the race that is set before us. And today, you all gathering here this morning, bless each other. You bless each other by showing up, right? We can plan as a diocesan staff and we can host you, but you show up for each other. You have come together. There's that story. It's often, I've heard it quoted a lot by, I've used it myself in sermons. I hear other preachers use it in sermons. Maybe you've heard this. It's like there's so many iterations of this story. It's like the telephone game where it sort of gets distorted. And it can be long and drawn out. I'm just going to give you but like the telephone game, the kernel or the main point remains the same. But the story goes, and again, I'm not giving a long version, that there was a boy who gave a missionary the gift of a shell. And sometimes you hear this around Christmas. And the short of it is that the place where the shell is gathered is hours away. And the missionary teacher, upon receiving this shell from the boy, says, thanks him for the beauty of the shell, but says, you shouldn't have walked several hours up and several hours back for this shell. And if you know this story, then the most important point is he says the walk was part of the gift. The walk is part of the gift. So you all getting up early in the morning and coming here and being with each other is gift to each other, right? You are blessing each other in this moment. And we remember that we are a diocese of people gathered together for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we have been kind of disembodied since the pandemic. Various iterations. Sometimes, when you're online, we've all been online enough to know that is a disembodied experience, right? It gets the job done, but it's not incarnational. It's not us bringing ourselves together into one room. So I hope that you will see today showing up for each other as gift for each other. As we work together, this is one of the ways, coming together, that we continue to build and rebuild the bonds of affection that we have as the people of God in this place, so that we can be one in mission. Okay, I think everybody's almost here, so we're going to begin with some worship, and just one thing by way of our worship is that we're going to sing 2 hymns, and when we do that, those hymns will appear on the screen, and you can stand as you're able, and we'll sing those 2 hymns together. In the middle of our worship will be primarily our time of dwelling in the Word. And you all, I think, are practiced enough about dwelling in the Word, but that's time for us to be together and to hear what our fellow brothers and sisters are hearing from the gospel. So I'll give another little instruction or prompt. I think we have a couple readers ready for that, right? Who are they, those readers? Kristen? Okay. So you all, Kristen, if you'll just come closer so that when it's time, you'll be ready. Holy God, you are always with us. Open our eyes to your presence. Let us pray. God of faithful surprises, throughout the ages you have made known your love and power in unexpected ways and places. May we daily perceive the joy and wonder of your abiding presence and offer our lives in gratitude for our redemption. Amen. Again, let us stand as you're able and sing One in Mission.
United by Christ the Lord of all. are God's redeeming word. We all are one in mission. We all are one in call. Our very gifts united by Christ the Lord of all. We all are one in mission. We all are one in call. Our very gifts united by Christ the Lord of all.
If you all be seated. Before we begin dwelling, I want to call your attention to the apples and the pumpkins that are on your table. They're not just nice decorations. What we'd like you to do as we hear the readings and as we dwell in the Word, we'd like for each of you to write something on that piece of fruit about a ministry that's going well in your congregation or a ministry that you've begun that's going well in your congregation, bearing fruit. And we will turn those in a basket back there to Sally, and she's going to make a display out of them, and we can see all of our many gifts and blessings. So that's what they are, and before we're done dwelling in the Word, or while you're dwelling, you can write a ministry that's bearing fruit or is beginning to bear new fruit in your parish. Can we have our first reader, Kristen? I remind you that we will hear the lesson read once, we will hear the lesson read again, and then we will have 10 minutes about. You will turn to somebody, maybe he's not as familiar to you, but you're all sort of sitting with your people, and let that person tell you what they heard, and you listen, and then you switch and let the other person tell what they heard. Thank you, Kristen.
When a great crowd gathered and people from town after town came to him, he said in a parable, "A sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some fell on the path and was trampled on, and the birds of the air ate it up. Some fell on the rock, and as it grew up, it withered for lack of moisture. Some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew with it and choked it. Some fell into good soil, and when it grew, it produced 100-fold. As he said this, he called out, 'Let anyone with ears to hear listen.'"
When a great crowd gathered and people from town after town came to him, he said in a parable, "A sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some fell on the path and were trampled on, and the birds of the air ate it up. Some fell on the rock, and as it grew up, it withered for lack of moisture. Some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew with it and choked it. Some fell into good soil, and when it grew, it produced 100-fold. As he said this, he called out, "Let anyone with ears to hear listen."
So if you'll pair up at your tables and share where you heard the Spirit speaking to you or calling to you in those passages. Okay, if you all will begin to wrap it up, and if you could take that down a little bit. Too loud. Thank you, thank you. A little less. Still super loud. Okay. So, thank you for dwelling with each other and sharing the word. If you will, again, while we're finishing our prayers and as we tie up our worship this morning, if you'll write on one of those pieces of fruit a ministry that's going on in your parish, had been going on for a while but is still fruitful, or some new ministry that is bearing new fruit, or that you pray and hope that will bear new fruit. We'll gather those up as we make our transition to the next part of the morning.
Sorry. Do you want us to write it on the front of the fruit?
Yeah, front of the fruit. Front of the fruit, thanks. There's always a person who's concerned with the details. Thank you, Laura Beth. Okay, let us pray. Let us pray. Okay, the Lord be with you. Let us pray. We pray for those suffering in the violence engulfing Israel and Palestine. Prayers for security and safety for Palestinians and Israelis. Prayers for dignity and human rights of Palestinians and Israelis. Pray for peace. For all the people of Ukraine and all who suffer from the war. For refugees fleeing the war in Ukraine, those fleeing unwanted conscription in Russia, and for refugees around the planet. For all those suffering from global conflicts of war. For those killed, families and communities traumatized in the epidemic of gun violence, especially communities in Lewiston, Maine. For the homeless, for the underemployed, for those suffering from addiction, for those in detention, for migrants, for the abused and the voiceless. For our earth and the environment as we grapple with global warming, for those suffering the effects of climate change, extreme heat, hurricanes, and flooding. I invite your own intercessions and thanksgivings. We hold in our hearts all who will be remembered this All Saints Sunday. Holy God, you are always with us. Open our eyes to your presence. Let us pray. Gracious God, you pour forth your extravagant bounty without measure upon your whole creation. Teach us such generosity, that the fruits of our spirits and the works of our hands may build your commonwealth of blessing. Amen. So again, stand as you are able, and we'll have our concluding hymn.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, offer songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount, oh, fix me on it, mount of God's unchanging love. Here I find my greatest treasure, hither by thy help I've come. and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the throne of God, he to rescue me from danger interposed his precious blood. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness, like a fetter, bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above.
Great to pray together and to sing together. And it reminds us more and more that we are people of prayer, called to worship and called to rejoice. So we have all been getting back to normal for a while. Too long, really. And I hear a lot people saying, well, we're just waiting for things to get back to normal. Well, folks, I'm here to say today, like, whatever that getting back together is all there's going to be, right? There's a new normal, right? A new normal. And we just need to begin to accept that whatever was a few years later maybe is not meant to be anymore. And the things that God and the Holy Spirit might be calling us into are the fresh, new plantings that we may be needing to open our hearts and minds to. So this morning, we want to have a little bit different format with you today to have a little more interactive time together. So in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from some different expressions, some different initiatives, some different ways of evangelizing and being a mission from 5 or 6 different people around our diocese. And Ken and Jenny Ferris is going to lead us in that discussion. We'll have time for questions of those panelists, if you will, and time for some feedback with each other. So we hope that you'll get much from that and find that a nice way for us to gather and think about our evangelism and our mission as the people of God in this diocese. So before getting to that, just want to sort of step over for just a second and say something about and have us as people of compassion and as people who are called to be those who strive for justice and peace, to say just a few things about the ongoing conflict in Israel, the Holy Land, where our 3 great Abrahamic faiths, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, struggle mightily with each other, as we've struggled for thousands of years. But our hearts grieve, and we are in places of confusion when we think about the thousands and thousands of innocent people that have been killed on both sides, who are suffering on both sides. And I just want to remind you all of our presence there as Christians in the Holy Land, as peacemakers, so that we remember and don't get caught up with the cultural battles around politics, that we remember that we are called to be peacemakers. And I remind you all, some of you all know well our organizations and how about the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem. Let me say that again. There is an Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem. And you might begin to add the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem to your parish prayers and their Archbishop Hassam. Archbishop Hassam, who I have visited with in Lambeth in England last summer, who I was with both in Lambeth and then when I was in Jerusalem this past March. Spent time in his home talking about the various things that the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem is trying to do in that region. And we worshiped at St. Andrew's in Ramallah, right? Palestinian-controlled West Bank, Ramallah, and with our fellow Anglicans with the Book of Common Prayer, right? In Arabic, but with the Book of Common Prayer. And Archbishop Hassam, who's also been in this diocese once, he preached at Deborah Hunley's invitation at Christ Church. This was before he was a bishop, so he's known to us, and we shared that. So I ask you to continue to pray for him. But he likes to talk about, as a way of explaining the difficulties and the complexities of the conflict, his own biography. And I share that with you just briefly because I think it's illustrative of these realities. Archbishop Hassam is of Arab descent. Archbishop Hassam was born in Haifa, so he is an Israeli citizen. I think about that. He's Arab. He's an Israeli citizen. He's a Christian, right? He is the leader of our Anglican Christians in Jerusalem. And he says, often people will say to him, when did you convert? Right? As if he converted from Islam. And he says, my family has been Christians for generations, right? And he is an Anglican. So think about those many things that Archbishop Hassam in his person is. And that's the case for so many people in this troubled land. I bring this up today because Archbishop Hassam has asked us in the Anglican Communion to, as many people have reached out to him, asking, how can we help? How can we help you in the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem and in your work as peacemakers? And his call was for us to support the medical missions, which are vast in that region, both in the West Bank, throughout Israel, and even in Gaza. I remind you all that the Ali Hospital that was bombed in Gaza is a ministry of the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem. When I tell people that, they're like, oh my gosh, we're that involved there. So your executive board and I have decided that we will make our St. Nicholas Day appeal this year in support of the Princess Basma Center, which the Princess Basma Center mainly their ministry is to Palestinian children with disabilities. And so you can imagine those children on the edges of the conflict are some of the most marginalized and the most vulnerable. Some of those Palestinian children, their mothers are allowed to be with them, but their fathers, because they're in Gaza or they're Palestinians, are not allowed to be with the family. So they are the Princess Basma Center, who I visited there when I was in Jerusalem, is on the Mount of Olives. Think about that, on the Mount of Olives where Jesus prayed. And they do this incredible ministry with children with disabilities. So our St. Nicholas Day appeal will go to that. And any swag you purchase today will go to that. And we'll hope to have a really large offering. And the size of that offering, and the reason I mentioned it to you today, will depend on you all, the clergy and lay people of the diocese, really talking it up. You know, it's interesting as I've watched the St. Nicholas Day appeal over the years, when people really get fired up about the cause, the collection really gets large. When you all don't mention it much, the gathering is still nice, but not quite the same. So as I end this piece, I want to show you a video from the Princess Basma Center and encourage you all to talk about, pray about the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem, Archbishop Hassam, this particular ministry to disabled children. Okay, so we'll make all these materials, including the video and other materials, available to you when we launch the St. Nicholas Day Appeal, which is December the 6th, the day of St. Nicholas. And so it goes through Advent all the way through Epiphany, lead up to our convention. So you'll get all those materials, and I hope that you will try to promote that. When I mentioned, and then I'll bring this to a close and tell you what I would like for you to do with your fruit. When I mentioned that we worshiped at St. Andrew's in Ramallah, I'm surprised when I have conversations that I've been having for the past month, hearing people confuse the difference between Jewish people and the Israeli government. Some people will say, I have friends that are Jewish, so I'm pro-Israel. Right? Those are different things. And people will talk about there are lots of confusion around who Palestinians are. And the thing I wanted to say to you when I talked about worshiping with them is I'll say to people, who do you think the Christians are in Israel? And there's always a little bit of a kind of right? The Christians, the majority of Christians in Israel are Palestinians, Palestinian people, right? So many of them are Muslims, many of them Christians. Many people in Israel, most, like this country, are secular, right? They're just going about their daily lives, trying to educate their children, eat, work. So we can be the people as far in this peacemaking effort that at least help people calm down maybe sometimes and to think about the complexities of that region. So thinking of our many blessings here that we have apart from those difficult realities, if you'll we're going to do a transition now, so I'm going to turn the morning program over to Canon Jenny Ferris, and she's going to lead us in this interactive way of hearing some new ideas for ministry. So we're not going to have a break, so to speak, where you go and are gone for a long time and I have to corral you back. What we're going to do is you're going to, where's the basket, Sally? So back there's the basket. If you're not getting up, give your fruit to someone else. If you are getting up, gather up that fruit and put it in that basket. Get yourself a little more coffee. Go to the bathroom real quick, but just come on back as quickly as you can. So maybe 5-ish to 10-ish minutes. Try to get the things you need and get back in place. Thank you.
Is this on? All right, I'm going to go ahead and call everybody back to your tables, please. Come on back. I feel the energy in the room. Come on back. All right. I'm going to bring you guys up two at a time. Do you want to sit first? I feel like it's like on display. Good morning, everyone. Okay, we've got balloons, we've got table decorations. Good morning, everyone. Well, I have to say, this is so exciting to see everyone in the same room and have the opportunity to be here this morning. And I'm so thankful for the times I get to see you all doing your thing and at each of your churches. So before we get started with our panel this morning, I wanted to give you some insight on how this program today came about. As I travel around, one question probably the most question that I'm most regularly asked is, do you know anyone who is doing children's ministry well, outreach well, invite, welcome, connect, whatever? Do you know someone who's doing this well? The clergy and the lay people that are going to be here on our stage today represent a cross-section of our diocese in church size, programming capacity, and even budgets. And while each comes from a different parish context, one thing that they have in common is that they are all being very intentional about their evangelism efforts. And purposeful engagement, whether with members of your congregation, in the larger community, or even through just intentional invitation, yields really good fruit. So how will this work today? This is sort of a moving target. I will say that ahead of time. Because we want to hear from our panel, I am going to briefly introduce our two speakers at a time. So we have 6 people in total, and so we're going to go 2 at a time. After the 2 speakers talk about their area, then we're going to open up and do question and answer from you all. So you have the opportunity to ask questions to our 2 panelists. And then we will switch and bring 2 more people up and give them the opportunity to share and for you all to ask questions. When you have your question and answer time, if you have a question, if you will think about this as what would benefit the whole group kind of question, so broad in scope, because I think we want to do our large question answer time for questions for the whole, and then following this time together, we're going to kind of move a little bit around, and we are going to have the opportunity to send our speakers to tables, and you can go and ask specific parish questions, or if you have a context question that's specific to your parish, you'll have the opportunity to visit with our speakers in that time. And so that way everybody gets a sort of like win-win. You get to ask whole questions, and then you also get some time to just ask some real context questions. Are you all ready? I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm excited for you to hear it. I just also want you to know, just so you don't think, everybody has microphone covers, so we don't want to pass any germs around. So they're going to be switching microphone covers between speakers just because cold and flu season is around, and we don't want anyone to get sick. More helpful youth event tips are right here with me if you ever need to be sanitary with large number of people. All right, here we go. The Reverend Matt Rhodes is the rector of St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Forest, Virginia. Matt is a second career priest, and prior to seminary, he worked on Capitol Hill in communications. St. Stephen's was one of our pilot churches for the Evangelism Initiative, and their work has led to positive impacts both in growth and community visibility. Matt is going to spend a few minutes talking about his use of communications with local media and how he has engaged community organizations to partner with St. Stephen's in his outreach and evangelism efforts. Matt. Is it on? To the right? Yes, you're on.
I may be in communications, but I am not a tech guy. At the beginning, let me say that Jenny talked about my use of communications, but I'm going to expand it and say everything we do to publicize the church is marketing. And I'll begin by saying every single person in your pews, clergy and laity alike, is a marketing professional. Everybody has an opportunity to spread the word about your parishes and about the Episcopal Church in this diocese. There's something my congregation, I'm sure, is tired of me talking about, and I have several of them here. They can nod if I'm correct. There was a survey done several years ago asking folks, why do you attend the church you attend? The overwhelming 86% answer that was given was because somebody invited them. It wasn't the clergy that invited them. Somebody in the pews invited them. Somebody in the pews marketed the church that these people are now attending. So I encourage you, use the marketing that you have in the pews. And you don't have to be a marketing expert. You just have to have a love for the group that you're talking about. Having said that, as Jenny mentioned, my first career was in communications. So there's also that component that can be incredibly valuable. One of the first things I did at my previous parish, and then when I came back to St. Stephen's at Forest, I built a media list. It's second nature for me. It was one of those instinctual things that I did within the first 3 hours I was sitting in my office. Everybody, regardless of where you are in the diocese, has a newspaper, has a local radio station, is covered by one of the television networks in Central and Southwestern Virginia. It's very easy to look up the name of the assignments editor or the name of the person that maintains the community calendar or the person that does the human interest stories or the church briefs. Build this little list. I did that, and every time we have a special service, a special event, anything that the congregation and I feel would be an outstanding opportunity to get community eyes on the church, type up a media advisory, I've got my list, I blast it out. That itself is free. I know a lot of churches are concerned about budget. This is the type of marketing and publicity that you can do that does not cost a dime. It takes 10 minutes to write your release or your advisory, 30 seconds to get it out. The bulk of your time, if you build these relationships with the media and use these relationships to help market your church and your services and your events, you're going to spend more time with the greeting and welcoming people coming to the church than you ever will writing the advisory or clicking send on the email. Another important part of that, along with using the media, is to partner with community organizations. I'll give you two examples. In the last 2 years, we have partnered or started partnering with the Bedford Humane Society and with the Alzheimer's Association of Central and Southwestern Virginia. The Humane Society we invite to come each year to our Blessing of the Animals that we have opened to the community, and for our trunk or treat that we started last year. With the Alzheimer's Association, we're now about to host the fourth of our bi-monthly Aging in Your Community series, where we have people come in who are experts, talk about resources available for the aging population, options that they have for a variety of things, whether it's housing or hospice care, long-term medical care, insurance, you name it, but also for the caregivers. So we're about to have our fourth session where we're partnering with the Alzheimer's Association. There are two benefits for that. One, you're partnering with an organization that somebody somewhere has an interest in. So they may not be interested in the church, but they may see Alzheimer's Association or Humane Society and want to come see what it's all about. And when they're there, then you have the opportunity to showcase who your congregation is, what your outreach priorities are, what your in-gathering priorities are, and what your church is all about. The history, the evangelism. And I know people hate using the word evangelism. When you welcome somebody, you're being an evangelist. When you send an advisory out to the media, you're being an evangelist. So by partnering with this, you have that opportunity that opens up. The added benefit is when you partner with these organizations, they have their own distribution list and their own people that they're in contact with. So the Humane Society may have 10,000 people on their email list or their social media list that St. Stephen's does not. But when we partner with them, you're suddenly reaching 10,000 more people than you ever could with what you have in your parish. Same with the Alzheimer's Association. They cover the entire central and southwestern part of the state. We could never hope to reach that group, and our events are targeted largely for the area around Bedford and Lynchburg. But the benefit is you're tapping into the networks they have, and by doing that, you're building a larger network for your parish. So marketing and communications have really paid off for us. It's resulted in people that have never been to a church, have never been to an Episcopal church. I can't tell you the number of times over the years where people talk about having driven down Periville Road and seen the Serpentine Wall and not known what's behind it. So it's an opportunity to have them come in and find out what it is behind the Serpentine Wall or wherever your parish is behind the front door, the door of the parish hall. And a lot of times these events, people, it may be your experience, people who are church shopping, this is kind of a generation, in my experience nowadays, the younger generation, that is skeptical enough that they may not want to come through a church through the front door on a Sunday morning for a service. But on a Wednesday afternoon, they may want to come through the side door and see what you're doing for outreach or support of the community or who you welcome from the community to come in and be a part of your life for an hour or for a season or for a lifetime. So again, and I see Jenny standing, so I'm probably getting really long-winded here. Everybody's a marketer. Use the marketing gifts you have in your pews. Media is free. Use the free media and build the relationships with the media that you have covering your area. Even if it's one small town newspaper, that one small town newspaper can make a huge difference in the eyes that get laid upon your church. And again, build partnerships because it benefits them. It brings joy and benefit to the individual parishes, and you're tapped into networks that will bring attention to your parishes that you might otherwise in 100 years have not been able to build up. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So if you have a question that's on the top of your mind, go ahead and jot it somewhere super quick so that you will know to ask a question after this is over. So I'm going to introduce, I'm going to say true confession to the people in the back. I have gone out of my own order. But that's okay. We're going to leave with our order the way it is, and so they can flip to the right slide. And I apologize to Liz. This is what happens to me sometimes. Okay, so the Reverend Gail Goldsmith is rector of Trinity Episcopal Church in Lynchburg, Virginia. Gail and creative leaders in the congregation have been experimenting with ways to reach young families and have had success building Little Church, where children experience church literally at their level, on the floor. She has also taken church outside to the local park where she leads prayer and play dates in the park with the youngest members and anyone else who wanders up. So, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Trinity's always had a few kids and a few families, and I got there at the end of 2020. I don't need to describe for anyone what that was like. And children's ministry was a beloved hope, but hadn't been a reality for quite some time. And we had, at that time, 2 kids in the congregation.
Two very outgoing, two very talkative kids, two kids who were really eager for there to be other kids at church. Their mom told me that they felt like mascots rather than feeling like they had fellow Christians around them, their age and their vocabulary. And so we began talking about what this could look like. And when I asked what children's ministry had looked like in 2019, what I heard might be familiar to some of you, and it might stress you out. This stressed me out to hear about. I had somebody say, yeah, we would do godly play. I would spend like 3 hours preparing, and sometimes no kids would show up. Oh my gosh, that stressed me out to hear. That was so generous of that volunteer's time. But you could just hear the 3 hours, and you could hear the disappointment. So it was really important to us to begin really simply, and to kind of remember two things that we kind of touch on in planning conversations. Assume people are very busy, assume people are burnt out, both volunteers and people interested in coming to this ministry. And two, assume that they really want to know Jesus. They want to know the promises of God, and that God keeps God's promises. And those are kind of our two touchstones. And the third unofficial touchstone that the vestry loves to secretly remind me is please be very, very cheap. Through the generosity of Trinity's congregation, we've been able to throw a 2-day vacation Bible school for $65. The myth that you need a big budget is, as you spoke to, one that can prevent creativity, and it's a nice one to myth bust. So with those two and secret third assumptions in mind, we began very slowly. In Lent of 21, we did a convocation video series. We sent out videos to children, kids and families in the Lynchburg Episcopal convocation. That was a great start for us, but as we began planning, both Patty and Jenny were really instrumental in consulting with me and several other lay leaders to say, what are some small first steps? Something that Patty brought to us was thinking about putting church within kids' comprehension, and we really are careful to say we're not watering down the theology, but we are making it a little more easily comprehended. And from her time at St. Columba's, Patty helped us put together this liturgy that we've used for our kids and families communion. And it is about, I would say this is about 25 minutes. We do it the first Sunday of the month. We've recently added guitar players, so that's been very exciting for us. And it's been very important to recruit volunteers. And I think people had to see it happen a few times before they were ready to volunteer. And also, I'm not a singer. I severely busted my voice, or whatever that was, at the kids and family service, and had to scratch through the 10:30. And I think that did prove to people we need a volunteer. Always glad to demonstrate that. But yeah, things can begin simply. Your congregation might need to see that it can be done before they're ready to jump in. But this has been a ministry that kids have told their parents they would like to go to church early to be there for, and that's really big to us. We've also seen kids take a lot of spiritual ownership in this. It could be as simple as reading the adapted prayers of the people. One young Bible scholar was like, I want to share a psalm with you. And so she read a psalm, to the assembled worshipers. At the kids' service, we set out like a big squishy mat. I put out pillows originally, and then I saw those become weapons in a pillow fight. So don't go to the Dollar General and get pillows. Save your budget. It's vicious pillow fights. Let's see. Yeah, I think I really just want folks to hear that it can be done with small volunteer asks. The assumption that everybody is burnt out and everybody wants to know Jesus. I know you see this in your congregations. You see this. You hear this in your friends. You hear this in your families. We're burned out, but we want to know Jesus. And then to respect, of course, the vestries, Gail, please, it needs to be cheap. Local parks. This is another asset that everyone has. And a lot of the kids have liked to show friends that they invite around, like, oh, I play soccer over here. That's been a low lift. We've done prayer walks. Kids have also led those for us. This does not need to always be an adult speaking. This has been really fun to see. We're working on having families do the teaching part of the kids and family communion service. We do like a short lesson in place of the sermon. We're working on handing that to families just to help structure those conversations at home, conversations where families would plan an offering together, maybe debrief it on the drive home. Do you have any other specific questions to help accomplish the goals?
I was just wondering, you said you started with 2 who felt like mascots. How many generally now once a month when you have a service do you have come to your children's service?
Yeah, so we found, our working population of kids now is about 17, and that's amazing. And we've found that that's not the kids and family service ASA. We found that we needed to bring in some elements of the kids and family service to our 10:30. I had kind of assumed, okay, like we'll do this 9:30 service, and I thought people would leave after the 9:30 service. They would then stay until the 10:30, which is a great problem to have. Not a problem, but a surprise for me. It is very strange to be like, you didn't leave. Don't worry, I didn't say that out loud. But we found, like, okay, where is the opportunity there? So we've then asked the kids who were at the 9:30 service to do our closing hymn. And by that I mean lead it. The first time we did This Little Light of Mine, I saw some adults thinking this was a children's choir performance, and I had to be like, no, you have to stand up and hold your candle. But yeah, so it's never been all of those 17 kids in the building at once for various reasons, but we figured between 9:30 kids and family service once a month. On the first and third Sundays, we do children's chapel. We do a very, very simplified children's chapel liturgy, pulling a lesson from the Jesus Storybook Bible or the Peace Table, which is kind of the Mennonite equivalent. Pull a lesson from there, sing a few songs, pray together, have a responsive, creative activity. The artwork from this has been amazing. I've seen some very wild skits. So yeah, just our children's chapel is as simple as story, song, prayer, creative response. We do that first and third Sundays during the Liturgy of the Word, and then the kids come in for communion. And then, so this is on the first Sunday, 3 different moving kids parts. Service, chapel, kids leading the end of the final hymn. We do catch most of those kids, but there is never quite everybody all in one place. And that was a fun idol to smash, a fun idea to get rid of, just kind of take off the table and say, it's not possible, let's stop hoping for it, planning for it. What can we do to catch all of these kids along the way?
Awesome. Okay. That was fast. All right, so Patty Ames is going to have our mic out into you also. First question, we have somewhere between about 7 to 10 minutes for questions for this set. So I'm going to let David start us off.
Yeah, okay. I've already been told shut up before I started. Story of my life. Do you know my wife? Anyway, I am so proud of these two. As president of the Lynchburg Convocation, I am in awe of all of the clergy in our convocation. The imagination that the two of you bring is amazing. I am curious, though. Both of you have grown your congregations. How have you plugged the newbies in so that it sticks?
The short answer is I have not had to plug them in. The congregation has plugged them in. We don't do so much because we are a small parish. We're growing, but we are small. We don't do a lot of things. I would much rather, as I've told the congregation, that we collectively pick one thing and do it all the way rather than 6 things and do each one of them halfway. Out of that, as Gail rightly pointed out, and I'm very mindful of, you prevent burnout, especially of people that may already be burned out for having done so much themselves for so many over the years. But the plugging in issue is something that literally I talk to people at the door after the service, and then I have parishioners taking them to coffee hour. I have parishioners inviting people to the Blessing of the Animals or the Aging in Your Community events. So it's something that's growing on its own. So when you ask me how I've done it, I've not had to. It's been a gift for me to watch the congregation plugging them in and making them, as I tell people, whether you come through the front door of St. Stephen's once or you come through for the rest of your life, you're automatically part of the St. Stephen's family. And to watch the congregation embrace that and live into that, for me, is the richest way that people get plugged in.
Yeah, that's a great point. This is a great ministry for the congregation to do. 2 questions that I've asked to kind of help it along. I ask both newer folks who've been coming for a few Sundays and folks who have been with us long term, who would you like to get to know better? Sometimes I can guess correctly, and gosh, sometimes I really can't. So asking people, who would you like to get to know better? I'll put 2 people on a group text and say, like, hey, I think you would enjoy talking. I know you all would enjoy getting to know each other. Here's a hint at what you have in common. But then the answer and the friendship from there always surprises me. We also do a renew class, which is my goofy rebranding of confirmation. Because we've had some older folks take it. If there hasn't been a class offered when they came in, they'll join in. Just always beginning with the assumption that people want to learn about God and learn about each other.
For that, and you can leave my mic on. I'll turn it off. That way we can jump in. All right. So, any other questions? Does anybody other have another question? Percolating. Oh, Patty back. There's one back here.
I'm Robert Matsu, a lay delegate from Trinity Episcopal in Manita, and I just wanted to try to answer this gentleman's question as to how to plug people in that are new to the church. We probably have, I think, somewhere over 30 small ministries in the church, and every year, at least once, we have a ministry fair, and the people in each of those ministries sets up a table in our parish hall, and with props and pictures and ideas about what they're doing. And people come through from the parish. They know it's going to happen between services. And they're welcome to ask questions and find out exactly what's going on the ground with each of these small ministries. And we do attract more parishioners into those ministries with that exercise, and I would strongly recommend it.
Thank you so much for that. Does anybody else have a question? All right, so the good news is if you have some specific questions for your from your context, when we break out, you'll be able to talk to Gail and to Matt about that specifically. Okay, so next I'm going to bring up Liz Moss. I'm going to bring Liz up. She is a member of Grace Episcopal Church in Lexington, Virginia, and I'm going to ask Jonathan Harris and Kristen Bell to come forward. Yes, you totally can. Yeah, you can. I'll introduce you. Let me move my papers. And Kristen, come on up. You can sit there, and I'll give you my mic. All right, so Liz, like I said, is here from Grace in Lexington, Virginia. She is the former senior warden. And Liz contacted me in early 2021 to learn more about Invite, Welcome, and Connect, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. And since that time, she has been instrumental in the development of a Connect committee for Grace to strengthen the involvement of the parish both inside the church and outside of the church walls. And she's going to speak to several different areas of that. So Liz, I'm going to go ahead and let you start.
Thank you. It's great to be here with everyone today. I've been asked to share with you the Invite, Welcome, and Connect work that's been occurring at Grace Lexington over the last year and a half. The program of Invite, Welcome, Connect is based upon the work of Mary Foster Palmer and presented in her book called Invite, Welcome, Connect. As the book states, it's a resource, and it empowers congregations to practice evangelism, hospitality, and connectedness. It's a practical guide with tools to help assess where things are and creative suggestions to implement. I believe most of the people at Grace have always considered our parish to be friendly. But completing our assessment encouraged us that we could do more. We could be more inviting to our neighbors and our community. We could be more welcoming to visitors. We could help people connect more effectively with ministries that would float their boat. At Grace, a committee was formed and our assessment began using the assessment tools in the book. The committee held a summit meeting with parish leaders because Invite, Welcome, Connect is not just about a committee doing work. This work really involves everyone. It's really about creating a mindset or a culture within the parish. It's all about relationships, getting to know people, getting to know the community, the neighbors, and those who come to worship and participate in ministry in the church, the community, and the world. Our assessment helped us develop plans for each of these areas which we could implement. So I'd like to share with you some of those initiatives that we started. Under Invite, we increased our visibility of our parish in the community, especially with use of our patio and our labyrinths. We had worship, coffee hour, music events, parties, dinners, all on the patio in front of the church. Blessings of the animals, offering labyrinth walks, allowing our neighbors and passerbys to see who we are and to see what's going on at Grace. We placed seating on the patio to invite the community to gather there, eat lunch, grab an ice cream cone from across the street, and sit on the patio and talk and enjoy our beautiful patio. We put new signage and lighting up. We had a website redesign. The parish news and the calendar accessible on the site. Twice a week, people on our mailing list receive emails, Facebook posts of activities, things that are happening at Grace. News articles in the local paper regarding upcoming events and concerts and inviting the community, and musical events in our new renovated nave. One of our highlights recently has been Pause to Connect. Pause to Connect is twice a week. Community members and Grace members bring their dogs to our patio, and students and others come and enjoy playing with the dogs. This has been a particularly hit with the college students that adjoin our church property. Under welcome, each Sunday we have greeters on the patio to welcome visitors and members. We encourage members to wear name tags and have name tags available for visitors. We invite visitors to complete an information card and sign the guest book. We have a gift bag with coffee mugs that are offered to visitors. Ushers welcome the members, too, and guests as they hand out the Sunday bulletins, and they offer fidget toys to families with young children. Following the service, greeters and ushers meet with the visitors, encourage them to complete a visitor card so we can contact them. They also introduce them to other parishioners, encourage them to attend coffee hour for Sunday lunch or other things going on. The visitor cards are collected following the service, and they're given to the church office for follow-up. So then we move on to Connect. To efficiently track visitors and newcomers to our parish, we're using a computer system that is called Realm. In this system, a parish designs a custom pathway that enables tracking of persons from visiting to membership. So visitor names are put into the Realm system, and they start on a pathway. First step is receiving a welcome card. Second step is receiving a call from the rector. Once those steps are completed, a visitor's name is given to the committee, the Invite, Welcome, and Connect Committee, for follow-up. Visitors are then assigned a shepherd who contacts them and begins developing a relationship. Shepherds are members of the congregation that have expressed interest in participating. Visitors are then invited to a newcomer get-together. Then the shepherd and others who are developing relationships with that person invite a connection with a ministry of that person's interests. There's lots of ways, lots of committees and organizations and small things people could do to connect. But you need to develop the relationship so you know what it is that that person's interested in. You might be interested in some of our statistics. Since tracking began last year and we ended our new group of people this fall and started a new list, out of that, we had 26 prospects that we were tracking in Realm. 13 of them transferred their membership to Grace. 13 remained prospects. That means they didn't transfer their memberships. But of those 13 remaining prospects, 9 of those are active at Grace. They attend worship, they attend events, programs. 2 of those live far away and they can't actively participate. And 2 are not active or they attend just occasionally. We've always, oh, my. You want to wrap up? Yeah, let me wrap up. Let me just wrap up. Okay. So our big focus, as I said, has always been on college students. It's a major mission of our church with our proximity to Washington and Lee and VMI. And so we always have our Adopt a Rat program going on, music scholars. We have a Canterbury Club, and I mention again the Pause to Connect. But I do want to close with this paragraph, and then I'm going to turn it over and sit down. During October, the start of stewardship season, the Invite, Welcome, and Connect Committee and the Stewardship Committee worked together to celebrate the ministries of all the people of Grace. Ministries that were in the church, ministries that were in the community, and ministries that were in the world. Following an evensong, the celebration was held outside on the patio in front of the church. Representatives of different ministries in the community were all invited to attend. The churchyard was filled with signs representing each of the ministries that our community has been our church people have been involved in. The churchyard was filled with signs representing the ministries that we support with our time, talent, and treasure. Everyone enjoyed the event with delicious hors d'oeuvres, cider, wine. Attendees were amazed at the number of ministries represented, and it generated conversations about what a ministry is and what's the motivation for support of a given ministry. It was a great success. I recently heard a comment from a community member who's not a member of Grace. When she heard that I attended Grace, she remarked, "Oh, Grace Episcopal, you are doing so much for the community." For me, that was what it was all about, sharing God's love in our church and in the community and in the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you
so much. All right. Thank you, Liz, so much. I'm going to introduce the Reverend Jonathan Harris. He serves on the bishop's staff as canon for transition and pastoral development. You all know Jonathan. But Jonathan has led Walk in Love, Joining God in the Neighborhood, this initiative. He has led this for many years. And he recently embarked on his own experiment. He invited Kristen Bell, a member of Christ Church in Roanoke, to join him in this work, and they are going to report a little bit about their process, the purpose, and the result.
So in the diocese, we've talked for quite some time about being experimental, having an experimental frame of mind when we're trying to think about ways to connect to new people. I think if you're like me, in our church work, especially in this day and age, it's not always clear how do we connect to new people. We have something to share, but how do we connect? So putting on that hat, I thought about how I'm a person who likes to be outside, who likes to walk outside, especially on a day like today, to hike outside, and also noticed that a lot of other people like to do that as well. And I thought, gosh, there's got to be, and especially during the pandemic, I realized this when all of us spent a lot more time outside. I got to thinking, gosh, there's got to be a way to gather people outside and have a spiritual connection in that experience. So I talked to a couple people around the country who've done similar things and got a couple ideas, but I was realizing none of them quite fit, and so I realized I kind of had to just pull something out of my own pocket, if you will, and just try something and go with my gut a bit. And fortunately, I'd known Kristen for some time and thought she might have the same interest, and so I brought a partner in, and they say, and that's one of the features of doing an experiment, ideally you have a bit of a partnership with somebody else who helps you carry out the experiment. I decided there's this loop. People in Roanoke know there's a loop up here, about a 2-mile loop up here by the Star called Chestnut Ridge Loop. And I walked that, and I thought, well, that looks like that'll work well. And then I got a couple ideas about a couple stops maybe we could have along the way. And then one idea I did get from this guy who does help the church do these types of things. I told him that I was particularly interested in reaching people who don't go to church. I love my own church people, but I'm not trying to connect with them. I'm trying to connect with people who don't go to church. And he suggested using the Meetup website or app. How many people have ever heard of Meetup? A couple people. It's a very cool website app that people use to meet up. To go hiking or to go kayaking or to play board games or meet at a brew pub or something. And it's very easy to use, so I just popped up a thing on there describing the walk. I called it a spiritual walk. I decided to use non-jargon, no jargon, just tried to make it as accessible as possible, and offered it for 5 Sundays at 5 p.m. in September and October. And lo and behold, a bunch of people showed up every time. And when it ended, they were kind of like, what next? And I kind of thought, yeah, what is next? I don't know. So Kristen and I are thinking about that. And so she's going to share a little bit about these people that did show up.
Morning, everybody. So who showed up? And I'll say their first names because that helps me remember. Linda, a late career college professor in the middle of a major professional transition. Tom, who was incredibly generous, brought us watermelon, always carried his walking sticks, a very affable fella. Dan, a retired healthcare provider who was also adjunct in West Virginia at a university there, and came to a different sort of perspective from a very conventional Catholic upbringing into Buddhism. A married couple came, Stacy and Daniel, a physician and a farmer. And they were very interested and worked towards helping to support medically underserved areas and patients, as well as healthcare literacy and advocacy. We had a young fella, 20-something guy in IT, who was just looking to connect in the outdoors, trying to meet other folks, and had been born and raised in the Roanoke area. And then on our last hike, we had another married couple who had just discovered us and were very interested in contemplative kinds of practices. So what I gleaned from the relationships that we built over that time, not everybody came, but most of the time there was at least one or two new folks in the group. And I thought that we created community pretty quickly, and was impressed with how willing that this group was to be vulnerable with each other. We started our walks with an inspirational reading, and then we'd walk a third of the way and stop and have silence in the woods, forest bathing. And so we'd hold that silence for 3 or 4 minutes, just getting in touch with our breath and appreciating the sounds both near and far, and then we would continue our walk. And another stop, we would talk about what was at the heart of our week. And that's where I was really surprised at how much they wanted to share with each other. And it was clearly building a fairly safe, brave space for that kind of sharing. Many of them had experiences in childhood with more conventional religious communities, but what I appreciated was just how much they were ready to accept the mystery, and not so many answers, not so many finite answers to questions. And I certainly feel that way over the arc of my life. I had a lot more answers when I was 20-something. I don't have so many answers at almost 60. So it was a really beautiful time and space, and certainly being in the woods was a great gift.
Thank you both so much, or all three of you, for this sharing. It's also just so inspiring to know that there are seekers in our midst. We forget that sometimes, that there are really seekers out there who want to just be part of a community and be spiritual and be guided, and just I think that's been what's so fascinating about this experiment. All right, so were there any questions for this group about Invite, Welcome, Connect, or about just setting up an experiment? Right behind you.
She didn't say it this time. So, so you had this group, and they kind of gelled. Did you let them know of the different parishes that are available nearby, or did it ever get to that point?
Am I on now? Yes. Right. Good question. That's kind of the to be continued part of it. I definitely, when I set up this group on the Meetup app, and by the way, there are 50 people that are part of the group now that said we like your group. 50 haven't showed up, but I was definitely decided and that was one piece of advice given to me, is be super clear about what you're doing. Don't do a bait and switch. I think that you're going to turn somebody off immediately. So, and I was super interested, again, and it's kind of a spiritual, not religious type person. So I again, didn't use any jargon, and really, and I think I even said no strings attached. So, so I think I honored that and respected that. So as we continue, I'm not quite sure. Again, obviously, I think it's worthwhile to connect to one of our church communities. So not quite sure how that might work with this group. I think Dwight Giley's mentioned you could do an optional side group or something, or maybe I start a totally different group and say this group has, we do the similar thing, but we're interested in Christian development. So not sure.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Along that same line, have you asked the people in the group what they would like to do from there?
Yeah, and they didn't want to stop. They wanted to keep going. In fact, I think they were really sad that we had sort of this end time, which is what was the catalyst to me and Jonathan going, we don't want to stop either. So we'll try it again in December. But they seem to desire and want that connection and to hike. A lot of them are serious hikers. This wasn't a serious hike. It was an opportunity to talk, so we weren't out of breath all the time. But they want connection.
And I think one learning for me was, I think kind of Kristen and I were kind of representing I think one of the gifts of the church, I think we know how to convene people for a purpose. We weren't using an organ in a church building and a set liturgy, but we were, this, to me, it was a church, we were still being church in the way we were convening them and setting a purpose for our time together. And I think that's what they appreciated being together. I think they appreciated having a purpose and kind of a set understanding that we're here for a more profound reason than just to talk, although they like doing that.
One of the benefits of any experiment is that it's open-ended and you don't really know how it's going to end up. But I think that's one of the gifts that we can learn from it in lots of different ways. I'm wondering if there was anything that you tried that didn't work in this experiment, or that there was a goal that you had to let go of as it kind of went on.
Yeah, it worked super well. So I was super surprised. I was expecting, that's why I was kind of expecting it not to work, because, again, Dwight got us all trained up. It's not about the end result. It's about what you learn, which I believe. But here, it was like we learned something, and there was an end result. So I think more to your question is thinking about, the next, do we just keep this in perpetuity as it is with the agreed upon parameters, or for something that's more intentionally Christian, how do you do that? I think that's the question.
And to experiment for the sake of experimenting means you don't actually know how it might end up. And that is so important once you have an experiment to assess where you are and not to pre-plan where it should already be going. Okay, so thank you all so much. And again, they'll be back. And I'm going to invite the Reverend Wilson Brown and Sally Muller to our platform here. All right. right, so Wilson, we will start with you. So the Reverend Wilson Brown is the rector of St. John's Episcopal Church in Bedford, Virginia. Wilson's church began offering drive-through meals in 2021, meals with no cost or strings attached, one night a month. This has become so popular in the community that the line for meals is often down the street. Wilson is going to spend a few minutes sharing the story of this COVID recreation and also about their warming shelter initiative that began as a response to a tragic weather-related death in the Bedford community. Wilson.
Excuse me. Y'all may remember back in 2022, the bishop gave us a series of questions coming out of the pandemic. What have we lost? What have we learned? What needs to be let go of and what needs to be renewed? What new practices and ways need to be born afresh? Those were important to me because there were questions we were being asked too. I've been telling my congregation we're not going to get back to normal. We're going to find the new normal. And one of the things that was just exciting was to try and keep the congregation from trying to snap back to let's put everything back in place. And people were tired. It wasn't that hard. It wasn't like I was going to be able to say, let's put all the communities in place and everything was going to happen anyway. So what happened that was interesting was that there were popular uprisings that had relatively little to do with me, except that I said, let's not let's just see what rises up. And one of them was that I think it was 2022, we decided we wanted to do our Shrove Tuesday Mardi Gras, but we weren't gathering that way. So somebody said, why don't we do a drive-through? Okay. And they did, and they put it all together. And we had folks, if you've been to Bedford, it's not, our driveway's not real obvious. You have to kind of figure out where it is and then make your way around back. But the folks figured it out, and we were giving away food. And as so often happens, somebody will say, do you accept donations? And as one of our leaders said, well, sure, we're a church. So we accepted donations, and we actually did better probably than if we had charged for it, but it really was free. It really is free. I've come to believe that's God's economy, that we give it away and we get it back. And one of the leaders of that, who's on vestry, later said, that was fun. Let's do it again. And it took a couple of months to get organized, but that group of people got together in our kitchen and make fairly modest meals, and we have folks drive through. We've been serving about somewhere between 110 to 180 meals and we only do it once a month. That's all we've got the stamina for and the resources for. But we get folks coming home from work. We get folks who are truly, genuinely, deeply hungry for food. And the volunteers have this great time with each other. They have a great time. Some of the folks are folks we know from the community. It's like, hi, it's good to see you again. Others we meet. And the volunteers all have a great time, and they take care of all of it. My job has kind of evolved to I sit on the table and ask folks, how's your evening going? And be sociable. Some people obviously don't want to talk. Some people obviously do want to chat back and forth, and about 2 or 3 times a night I'll find myself saying, bring your car on over here and we'll talk for a little while, because folks really do want to talk. And it's been just a lovely way to connect with the community again and again and again. And like I said, it's a popular uprising. I've been awed by some of the people who've gone before who were so very intentional. I basically got out of the way. And the volunteers took it similarly to that, and running in parallel. We have a police officer as part of our congregation, and one of the residents of Bedford froze to death a couple of years ago. Just died where he was lying. And Tim really got a heart for, I want to do a warming shelter. There's another community doing that. And in that case, I did get in the way. Tim was like, "Hey, let's open up the doors and bring folks into the parish." Oh, wait. And there were about 1,000 questions to ask, but I made it real clear that I'm not saying no. I'm saying you have to address these questions, and so we worked our way through. And as we worked our way through, it turned out that the Presbyterians had have a community center that turns out has a washer and dryer and has a shower, and they were willing to, because Tim could answer all their questions about what they were concerned about. Tim accuses me of having worked him over real well, so that he was ready for those interviews. But and so we partner with them. We partner with the Department of Social Services. We partner with anybody. We're really trying to get volunteers. It's difficult to get somebody to stay overnight. It's a warming shelter. There's also a little community backlash. It's a warming shelter. It's not a homeless shelter. We're not bringing homeless people in. We're just providing, and it's not aimed at people who are sleeping on the streets in particular. It's aimed at anybody who's just cold. Some people can't heat their houses well, whatever. Forgive me, I get a little teary. You cannot imagine how proud I am of my people when last Christmas, it was Christmas Eve, cold as can be, and a couple of my people said, "Oh, we're going to open early," and they stayed. Watching them take the leadership on such things deeply, richly inspires me. And the community notices. I don't know if we've got any members out of it, but we sure shouldn't have a bunch of very, very energized lay people. And if there's an intentionality about all of that, it has been more that we've just said to each other for years, let's be engaged with our community, let's respond to our community, let's partner with folks where we can. If we get members out of it, fine. We're giving away food. If you want to make a donation, great. We're a church. And we tend to find that there's always enough, maybe more than enough. And just real grateful to be able to serve that way.
So much. I was just going to, for context, I imagine people, if you don't know St. John's Bedford, can you just tell me like how big your church is for those who might not know? Because I think that's part of this story.
Sure. We have an average Sunday attendance of about 50, 55. It used to be easier to keep records, but I'm guessing we probably have about 150 people who are truly active.
That's perfect. I just wanted context for 180 meals going out the door once a month for, not a mega church by any means. So I just wanted everyone to have that context. Thank you so much. Okay, Sally Mueller is a member of Trinity Episcopal Church in Stanton, Virginia, and a member of the Becoming Beloved Community Guiding Team. Sally is a leader in her Sacred Ground Circle and is instrumental in developing BBC ministry for Trinity and supporting the work of the guiding team throughout the diocese. Sally is going to give us an overview of the variety of work that is part of the Becoming Beloved Community Guiding Team and why it is so important for BBC to be part of our evangelism efforts in the diocese.
Thank you. I'm short, so I'm going to stand so you can see me. I'd like to explain briefly what Becoming Beloved Community is. I assume most of you have heard about it, but it doesn't hurt to abbreviate again. Bishop Curry has made this his primary thrust, Becoming Beloved Community, to encourage all of us to enact, fulfill, be engaged with our baptismal covenant. So as we go through each of the parts of the baptismal covenant, and we all respond with, I will with God's help. Bishop Mark has established a guiding team for the Becoming Beloved community here in our diocese. And if you wouldn't mind, any members that are here that are members of the guiding team, would you stand for a moment, please, so you can be recognized and perhaps have somebody reach out to you if they want more information. Thank you. Please talk to them. We are also, one of our goals is to have a delegate or two from each of our parishes within the diocese to be the members at that parish that are encouraging and helping with the beloved community. And some of our churches do have 2 delegates and some don't have any yet. So again, speak to one of the members of the guiding team if you're interested in helping out. At Trinity, we've been involved with Becoming Beloved Community for quite a few years, even before it had its name. Trinity has had a noon lunch program that is Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, 52 weeks in the year, where we feed anybody that comes for lunch. The ministry started with the parish secretary sharing her peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a young couple that came in and said they were hungry. And it's grown from there, became larger than what Trinity by itself could handle and man or person. So there are now, I believe it's 20 churches within the Stanton, Augusta County area that take a day of the week and provide lunch, usually a hot meal, except in the summertime, and then it's something a little bit cooler, to members of the community. And it serves anywhere from sometimes as low as maybe 15, especially during the pandemic when we gave out bagged lunches, to up to 55 people every day. So the number varies. Some people are regulars, excuse me, and some are just happen to be in the community that day. So that was probably the very beginning of our Becoming Beloved Community, if you will, before the name had been established. The death of George Floyd was a big impetus in our parish for people to become more involved in social justice and showing compassion and loving to people. We held, despite the pandemic, we held an outdoor, and we have a large campus, so to speak, for the church. We're a whole block there in Stanton. We held a prayer and presence day for about 4 or 5 hours, and we had posters with various support messages, and every 15 to 30 minutes we would stop for a prayer. Then we'd go back to the fences kind of so that we could be seen, and the response was overwhelming. People were honking their horns as they would drive past, and if they were walking past they'd say thank you and so forth. So that was another beginning of our Becoming Beloved Community. Trinity has quite a few mission efforts. Tuesdays at Trinity is every Tuesday evening we gather and share a meal together, and different groups within the church prepare the dinner for that evening. We ask for a $5 donation per person, except kids are free. And the money that is gathered is then donated to a mission that the group that has sponsored it, has created the meal, has designated as their beneficiary, if you will. So we have the first Tuesday of the month goes to support our Honduras mission trips. The second Sunday is done by the youth choir, or more likely I should say the parents of the youth choir, and that money raised goes back into the youth choir to develop their program, which that is a burgeoning and evangelical movement within Trinity. All kinds of children from the community have come and joined the youth choir. The third Tuesday, the ECW, Episcopal Church Women sponsors, and the funds go to Valley Supportive Housing, which is housing for low-income, usually disabled, marginalized people in the area. And the fourth Tuesday of the month is the Men's Grilling Group, and they have their funds designated for the Haiti Collaborative. So that, all four of those are very beneficial to so many different people. We have a ministry that I want to real quickly mention that is, we had a speaker already this evening, or this afternoon, about Alzheimer's. We have once a month a memory cafe where caregivers and their spouse or whomever it is that they're caring for come and have a couple of hours with a tea and some light activity and just support and fellowship. So there are just so many ways that we can all become part of God's beloved community. And I'd appreciate it if you would all respond with me now, the answer to our baptismal covenant. With God's help, I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of you. And again, the guiding team, the diocesan guiding team, is available for any churches that are looking to learn more, resource themselves. There's representatives here. Canon Patty Ames is our staff liaison. So please, utilize any of our members to help with that effort in your church. All right, are there any questions for this group? I know, well, I mean, your work
Jenny?
speaks for yourself. Patty.
I just want to speak to it. I commute from Lynchburg. I live in Lynchburg, but come over to Evan's house here in Roanoke several times. And recently, the last time you had the dinner, Wilson, I just want to tell you, as someone who drove by, and I go through Bedford, and I thought, why is there a traffic jam in Bedford? That was my first thought. And so then I realized what was going on because of your signage out on the front lawn, and all the people, not only people in cars that were there to go through, but people that had gathered either before or after getting their meals, and the community that was going on outside. And I'm going to tell you, I almost felt like I'm going to pull in, and then I realized I had my dog in the car, and that would not go well. But it was quite a sight to see. And I just want to say that as someone who didn't know what was going on at first, but it was very impressive, both the offering, but the community that I saw just driving down the street. So thank you for that.
In fairness, you got caught in the traffic that had just finished up from the homecoming parade.
Okay. Well, then a few of my words were okay.
No, it was great. I just wanted to, we're not blocking up Bridge Street on Bedford every week with this. We get a steady stream of folks. It turned out that through a masterpiece of misplanning, we decided to do our drive-through dinner the same night that they were doing the homecoming parade. So for a little while we didn't get anybody coming through, and then we had a good steady stream afterwards. And come on, if you're not going to end up fighting with your dog too much for the food, come on in anyway. It'll be fun.
You haven't seen my dog.
All right. So, are there any other questions? Yes, Patty over here.
Hang on, I'm coming.
Just real quick, I can talk loud.
Okay.
I just want to know with Wilson, what time of the day or what day of the week do you do that each month?
We do this on second Thursdays, and it's from 5 to 7 is the designated time. We figured out that we had to be, folks come and start cooking fairly early. It's this great fellowship piece for our people. That's, before anything happens, but folks will start wandering in about 4:15, so we'll be scrambling. And then folks will, usually we're pretty well done by 7, but almost invariably we'll have a few meals left over, and we'll be divvying them up among the volunteers. And somebody will wander in and need an extra few meals, and we'll be scrambling around, going, okay, who can give up the meal that you thought you were taking home? That's a lot of fun, too.
That's awesome. All right, so here's how we're going to proceed going forward. So we're going to, I know everybody's been sitting for a long time, and you're going to have the opportunity to get up and move around as we move into, if you have some site-specific questions, that you'll have the opportunity to ask them. So I'm going to tell you where people are going to be, and then we're going to just sort of let you all get to those spaces. Because this time is sort of, we have 30 minutes. We have 30 minutes before lunch, and so the time that you will need, just if you want to stand up, walk around, and then head to a group, go to the bathroom, that's perfectly fine. So Matt Rhodes is going to be in the room across the hall. He doesn't know that yet, but he does now. He's going to be in this room straight across the hall, but he is going to be joined by John Church. John, if you'll just kind of wave your hand. John is our priest for the Appalachian Alliance, and he has done amazing work building the Alliance, which is a group of 4 churches, through social media, specifically Facebook. And if you haven't liked the Appalachian Alliance page, I really encourage you to go and do that, because you'll get to learn not just about the ministry of the Appalachian Alliance, but you'll also get to see some use of social media that's very unique to us in the diocese, and how he publicizes the churches and how he talks about the ministry there. So John is also going to join Matt in that room, so that if you have any questions sort of about how to use social, how to use Facebook, that's really what he uses the most, some Facebook skills, and he's been building them for years. So he's been working really hard on this. He'll be in that room with Matt. And then Sally is going to kind of wander around, or the table. We're going to put table markers around, so you'll have an idea of to go once you've gone to the bathroom and you want to wander back. So, Patty, who do you have there? Okay, Beloved Community is going to be back at their beautiful table with their trifold. And if I could get perhaps over here, if we could, who do you have, Sally? Oh, sorry, this is Sally too. Yeah, there's 2 Sallys. All right, so just tell me where you're going and who's going to be where. So how about we put Gail? Where is Gail? Gail Goldsmith's going to be over here. So if you want to learn some more about children's programming and experimental worship, Gail is going to be in this vicinity. And then where is Liz? Liz, you're in the perfect spot. Liz is going to be right here. And if you want to learn more about Invite, Welcome, Connect, you can join her table. Where is Jonathan? Jonathan and Kristen are going to be here. So Jonathan and Kristen, it's like you all self-sorted for me. So Jonathan and Kristen, if you will be there. And we've got Matt, we've got Gail, and we've got Wilson. Where were you sitting, Wilson? Perfect. So Wilson, Wilson's going to be right here. So the idea here is for you all to have a bit of a break, but then to come back to the tables to discuss, pick a group to come and discuss some initiatives with each other, have some time to build and share within your midst, because we know you need that as well. And thank you for being here today, and thank you to all of our panelists for taking the time to prepare and to come and speak to you. And Bishop Mark, too.
And so again, what we'll do is, this is a time, too, for not like a big break because you're having lunch, but as you get up and move to one of these tables, if you have an interest, then you can go to the bathroom and stuff. And then at 12, right about 12:15, if you can just kind of gather back here, you can stand and stuff, have a final word and a prayer, and then release you to eat, and then self-organize in your convocation meetings to do that election business that we need you to do. Okay, so half an hour, you can go to one of these tables, or you can talk with amongst yourselves. But 12:15, try to gravitate back this way. So just 5 more minutes. Still not very loud. They can hear? So maybe 5 more minutes, start tying it up, and in 5 minutes, start tying it up. Okay. If we could, there we go. If we could begin to just come back into the room and start to quiet down a little bit. Okay. Okay. All right, everybody. All right, the Lord be with you. I guess that always works. So, quickly, Canon Mark Fuller is going to tell you where your convocations are meeting, and you can hopefully you can do that over lunch, or you can meet lunch here, and then you would decide that by convocation. But he'll give you the room numbers and some other information, and then we'll have a prayer and a final sending.
Thank you, Bishop Mark. Just to be clear, there are definitely different breakout rooms for y'all. For convocation breakouts, they're at 1 o'clock, after lunch at 1 o'clock, beginning at that time. Roanoke convocation will be in this room, the parish hall. The Lynchburg convocation will be in the church. The Abingdon convocation will be on the 4th floor boardroom. So if you go up the stairwell to the 4th floor, through the double doors to the boardroom, and we'll have a Zoom set up in there, and I'll be with you for that. And then Augusta will be in the chapel, which is down the way here, and Lulu's Lounge, which is this room right here to the left, that will be New River convocation. All right, so you all get the lounge. And then each convocation president has a packet of pens or pencils and slips of paper. That is if you need to do a paper ballot, which may not be the case. If you take a voice vote for one slate and adopt that, you won't need the paper ballots, but that's there if you do have a contested race. Okay, and come find me if you have a question. I sent you a sample agenda for your flow in email, but glad to help. Bishop Mark.
Okay, well, again, what a great blessing this day has been, and you have blessed each other with your attention, with your time. You can see our nice gathering in of fruit and pumpkins. I hope that, and thank you again for Sally for the nice presentation, and for Laura Beth actually asking the question to which side we ride on. We would have had a ton more, I think, on the other side if she hadn't asked that question. So beautiful. I hope you'll come up and just take a look at all these blessings going on in our church, and we're going to take some pictures of them and send those around. Now, you might be wondering about this little guy here. And so inside are some daffodil bulbs. And so we're keeping with our planting theme. We're thankful for the nice presentation of Sally putting all these in little bags. I was just going to throw them in the canvas bag, but she is much more creative than I. So you have the verse, and you have how to plant this bulb. And this would be then, I think, an outward and visible sign of the work that we're doing in our congregations to plant. And I hope that you will take these back, and not only, I hope that you will go back to your parishes and not only think about maybe where you could plant these in your parish. You could also plant them in your yard if you have a bunch of, but you all can be creative and decide what to do with them. But I hope that also you will go back and share with your congregations, maybe even in the morning, right? To say, somebody from either the clergy or a layperson say, we were at Fall Mission Day yesterday, and we want to communicate this to you, and I'll leave you to communicate what you want from the day. But when we talk about being a great cloud of witnesses, or being surrounded by that cloud of witnesses, you might ask yourself, what are you prepared to and willing to witness to? What are the new kinds of plantings that you are going to commit yourself to, and your parish might commit itself to going forward? So hopefully you'll take these and find a nice home for them in your parishes and in your own homes. So let us pray. Gracious God, we give thanks to you for the beauty of this day and all the blessings that you pour out in our lives. Thank you for drawing us together to be your people of God, and the people of God in this neighborhood and in this diocese. We thank you for the food that we are about to receive. We thank you for the beautiful drive that we have to our respective congregations and homes. And gracious God, your reign of love makes all things new. Plant the seeds of confidence and gladness in our hearts, so that trusting in your word, we may live no longer for ourselves, but for him who died and was raised for us, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And I think they just about have food ready. Is there, Kristen or someone out there, are there any instructions about lunch? They're like, I don't know. Here she comes. Any particular instructions about lunch? Okay, so it's going to be kind of help yourself. We got sandwiches and chips, and that's pretty self-explanatory. And if you need a gluten-free meal, then come find Kristen, and she has that under control too. All right, see you all.